The guy's 6'7". Yeah. Oh wait, he's 6'7".
That's crazy.
I don't like that.
Yeah, I don't like a big geography guy.
It could be so fun and so yee, and then all of a sudden it can be like, man, this is just awful, and it's just the worst feeling in the world.
Welcome into Overtime, presented by Perfection One. My name is John Bruce, alongside Shayne Combs. Welcome into episode 95 of Southern Ohio Sports Authority's Overtime, filmed here in the Chillicothe Sports Cards studio, located inside the dugout in downtown Chillicothe. The dugout, once again, is we have a commercial. You saw it if you watched our games down at the Convo, all 20 games. You would have seen that commercial on many of them, and based off of our viewership, it appears that a lot of you did see those games, so we appreciate you checking us out. There's a lot of different options out there, and it seems like we got a pretty nice share of them, but we appreciate everybody doing a little bit of their part across the area, not just with SOSA, but other companies as well, which is something I'm going to talk about here in a few minutes. But one of the really cool things about the dugout is, you have all kinds of features in for baseball and softball, and it's got heat and it's got air conditioning. So here coming up, I know this is going to go out on Tuesday. I think there is not anything available on Tuesday, and I think that's because people realized, hey, it's going to be cold on Tuesday. Let's get inside, get some swings in, and get better in that situation.
Yeah, first of all, the Convo stretch was incredible. Being a part of that was really, really cool. And you're right, it was nice to see the commercial on there because it allowed people to maybe have a visual of what we've been talking about. And you're right, as we record here on a Monday, it's snowing outside. Yeah. And I know a lot of softball and baseball scrimmages were canceled tonight, already canceled for tomorrow. And if you've been familiar with spring sports, we're not done yet. This is just going to be the reality here over the next probably 2 to 3 weeks. So utilize the inside time. And as you said, even when the weather gets nice, sometimes you're looking when you've already gone out and maybe put a couple hour practice in the heat or whatever, and you're just wanting to get some extra reps. Sometimes it's nice just to come into a more laid back environment, especially if you're an older player without the coach. Just kind of take what the coach has been working with you on and come in and kind of a laid back atmosphere, kind of get to work and get some good reps in.
Yeah, it's a really good feature for our area, and we appreciate being able to film inside of the dugout here in the Chillicothe Sports Card Studios. And it's one of those things, sosadugout.com. If you haven't seen it, get a chance to check it out. And then, a lot of people have been in here. I mean, the player wall is pretty well filled up. Yep. I think it's a little filled up with some familiar numbers if you're working with kids or just have kids at this point. So, it's pretty fun, and it's a good chance for people to get better, and it's for people of all ages as well. We've seen people from as young as T-ball to adult league players and beyond.
Yeah, it is. It's a really cool place just to get what you want out of it, depending on what level you're at. We've watched a lot of groups come in and really maximize some space and time and do some things, but we've also watched some older, more serious players come in and get just as good a work in. So something I've been consistent on this. If you are in the baseball, softball in the area, which in this area a lot of people are, you owe it to yourself to at least see it one time, just so you understand the resource that is available to you when you need it.
Yes, I completely agree with that, especially with the World Baseball Classic finale coming up on Tuesday, the day that this show is coming out. Maybe you get a little extra itch going into it before the high school season start.
Come in and work out and put it up on the screen.
Yeah,
watch it.
It should be fun. So one of the things that I kind of mentioned it about our area, and one of the really cool things that I got to experience this week, I got to go up to 3 of the 5 games featuring girls teams from our area. I was not there for the Portsmouth championship game because I was down at the Convo for that, but for 3 of those games, one of them, the Circleville game was at UD Arena. The other 3 were at the Nutter Center. And one of the things you realize how fortunate people in our area are, and hopefully kids realize this as well. I'm sure their families do. There were for the first game, it was Unioto Akron St. Vincent St. Mary's. Obviously, did not go very well for the local team, but we're in for the press conference afterwards. And in the press conference, St. Vincent St. Mary's came in first. Seemed like really good kids. Like they carried themselves well, they spoke well. But in the press conference, there was one person from Akron there to ask questions. Now, I asked a couple questions later just to, because it just felt like, there were a lot of people in the room, but there's only one in there for them. So then the Unioto kids come in. There were, I believe, 5 different media outlets there for the press conference. So 5 different media outlets from the Chillicothe area for that, and one from Akron. Now, granted, slightly easier to get there from Chillicothe than it is Akron, but this is something that a lot of other places don't have. Then the next day, Fairland comes in and plays. Portsmouth comes in and plays. It goes from 5 to 6 groups. I think it may have been 7 at one point. Different places that are promoting and covering the local student athletes. And I just, as I'm sitting there watching it, and the team Portsmouth beats in the semifinals, after Portsmouth, we all kind of left. There was one person left in the room. You almost feel for those kids at that point because they're not getting that attention that kids in our area that we all know are getting. And I just feel like it's something that should be celebrated with all of the different people that are taking extra time to help celebrate these kids, because our kids in this area are so special. And it's not just what SOSA does. It's not just what different places do. It's not just what newspapers do. But with newspapers kind of going not completely out, but a lot of different newspapers are out. I think a lot of different people have stepped up, and it's one of those things that I think it's a really cool opportunity for the kids in our area.
It's really interesting that you start the show with that, because it's been on my mind a lot. I want to take that a step further, if that's okay, in terms of, before I say this, make sure we understand, I've been in education for 27 years now. So, I believe wholeheartedly in education. I believe in what it means, what it represents, what the need is for kids to be successful in life. But with that being said, if you've been around middle school or high school kids for as long as I have, and you can't recognize the importance of extracurricular just activities, you're really just becoming blind to the truth. It's the incredible support that you see when you see these teams go out, and I'm not even talking about making the Final Four. That's like the highest level of unbelievable. Like, we're going to talk about what Portsmouth's done, what amazing Fairland's done, what Unioto has done. Unbelievable. I'm talking all the way down to, the combo games. I'm talking to some tournament success. I'm talking about regular season success. I'm talking about whatever it may be. I'm talking about, the band performing on a Friday night. I'm talking about cheerleaders. I'm talking about everything. Extracurricular activities are so crucial, and they dictate, fair or not, I don't make the rules, I just follow them. Fair or not, they dictate the culture of your community more than you'll ever dream. And so it sounds like an oxymoron type of discussion for me to sit here as an educator of almost 30 years and say, those teams didn't get together in the Nutter Center or at Dayton or at the Convo or whatever to highlight their science program.
Yeah.
Right? They had come together to highlight sports teams and accomplishments. And we have people in the wrestling state, and we have people, all these different things that are going on. And that is the foundation of your culture. Now, why is that important? Because that's what goes back to the academic side of things. I can speak myself. Growing up in the 7th, 8th, 9th grade, I wanted to get some grades so I could play some sports. I wasn't mature enough to take that competitive spirit in, but later on I had started to become that way. So now all of a sudden, through sports and through the way I was raised by great parents and so forth, then it was time for me to take that competitive spirit and put it into the classroom, put it into college, put it into my career, put it into those different things. All I'm saying is, if you put the blinders on when it comes to the importance of the extracurricular in your communities, you're cheating yourself in a big time way, because the product that you put on a court or on a field or in your programs, the pride that kids want to be, having good coaches, supporting those good coaches, then watching programs go, watching programs win, putting your community on the convo stage, putting your community on the Wright State stage or the Dayton stage. Those things become really, really important. And I think you're really, really cheating yourself if you try to get all like, oh, academics first. Well, of course academics are first. They call them student athletes. But I also know that when I bring that kid into my classroom or into my school, I better be able to have something that he or she will respond to and motivate them. Or all of a sudden, the old argumentative essay I need them to write may not be enough to get them to care about life. Am I making sense there?
Yeah, and I think with, I've had kids in the classroom that have, like, I feel like gotten more effort out because of just doing like this. Like, they want to talk sports. I'm like, okay, well, you got to finish, this, and you have to do well on it. You can't just, just check mark things and be done and we'll talk sports. They're like, no, you gotta take this serious. If you do this for the next 40 minutes, we'll use that last 10 minutes. Yeah. We'll talk about basketball. We'll talk about the NCAA tournament coming up. It's just, or we'll talk about what, teams played well down at the Convo. Right. And it's just, I know, just to not, hammer onto the Unioto point so much, but I had kids say, they want to get better at basketball so they can play like a Miley Smith. Like, yeah, it's important. And these are things that, obviously the grades and academics are the most important thing. But if you try to act like these extracurriculars aren't good for the community, like, get out of here with that. Because if you see the support, and this is not even in our area, Ottawa Glandorf had just insane support system.
They did.
Well, and then you look back, like when you look at like the state grading stuff, like they're one of the better schools. Like it's right. you have it if you have good extracurriculars, typically you're gonna get some good teachers or good coaches that end up being good teachers as well. And it can kind of help build your entire community, even if that's the way you start. Sometimes you have coaches that are there, like if you use Westfall, for an example, I've had some really good coaches come in, and they've moved them into administrative positions. And I guarantee you those good coaches that are good administrators are going to help elevate that school because of, just how they do things.
It really is a key component. I talk to kids all the time, especially I work at the middle school age. I have my whole career. And I talk to them about what are you doing after the final bell to make you the best version of you so that we can be the best version of us. And that's what you're constantly trying to push. And there's only so much in the old 7th grade math class that you're going to teach them that is going to get that whole child created, if that makes sense. So like, I love when I see them out running on a track. I leave school today in this weather and I see cross country runners. That's
months away.
Now they may run some track or some different things, but they're out running different things for their distance. Maybe getting ready for track as well and the cross country, out training. That is discipline that will carry them into the classroom and carry them into becoming more mature in terms of how they compete at life and in general. So that just makes a lot of sense to me. Maybe it doesn't to people out there. I assume if you're listening to this show, you at least like sports, right. So you at least understand a little bit what we're talking about. But I'm telling you, it's awesome to see the communities that get behind their student athletes and support them at a high level. It matters.
Yes,
it matters.
It does matter. And one of the communities that we saw in Dayton this weekend that really supported their kids were the Portsmouth fans and people from Portsmouth. And I'll tell you what, we're going to talk about them winning that state championship here in a second. Sitting where me and Derek were sitting for that state semifinal game and having the Portsmouth band behind us, it just felt like so much more of a game. And that's just more of that extracurricular thing. So it's the band is there supporting the girls basketball team, and that's all supporting the school. So those are different extracurriculars that come together to support that one community. And every time there's a timeout, it just felt like, you're getting a little more energy from that Portsmouth group because they got the band, because they got the big student section right behind them. And it was just an outstanding atmosphere, which led to an outstanding comeback in that game. They finish the state semifinal on an 8-1 run. They get down by 4. They get a couple of big steals, come back, and then, man, Kiki Woods, Sienna Allen just made outstanding plays down the stretch of that one to win it. And then they carry that over into the next day. And, I mean, Haven Carter, Bryce Shannon were outstanding in that. Obviously, and we'll talk about Kiki Woods here in a second, but you had Salem Allen, you had KK Mays, you had Sky Mays, Abby Witt. Coach Hughes, with a program of 8 players, wins consecutive state championships. Just how impressive is that?
It is, and it's, what's so impressive about that particular group is how they play the game the right way. I was intrigued by an interview I heard from Coach Hughes where she was talking about offense, and I ended up hearing it probably just before their regional semi or final. I don't remember the exact date. And I really watched them. So I sat down. I was watching the state tournament game. I actually had taped it. Went back and watched it, and I was kind of watching some different possessions. And the part I loved about it is, from a really young age, she's not necessarily been teaching one offense. More what she's doing, she's teaching them how to play offense. And you can really see it in their game. And I think that's why they're so difficult to guard. They're so difficult to scout, because there's just really talented players out there playing. In the semifinal, I thought the way that team tried to defend them, I thought Allen kind of stayed in some matchups and really tried to seek her shot a little bit more. I think she had close to 20 in that game. She was 20, really, really good. I thought she was equally impressive in the championship game. Had some outstanding one-on-one moves, some incredible footwork that you could use for like camps this summer in terms of showing people how to use the pivot foot. But then obviously she also became a playmaker. She was able to pass the ball really well. She was able to draw some defense. And then obviously, I'll let you read off some stats with Woods here in a second. She was unbelievable in the really the whole weekend, but the championship game. I think perfect is a word that, isn't that far off describing how she played in that game. So I thought it was really, really intriguing to watch how well they guard, how well they take care of the ball. But I loved watching them play offense throughout the tournament. And then hearing that interview, it really shows up in terms of how they just they space the floor, they share the ball, they're very, very skilled. But the basketball IQ that they play with is really, really impressive.
Yeah, and it felt like in that semifinal, Woods was kind of a little off because she picked up her 4th foul early in the third quarter, had to sit for most of that third. She comes back in the 4th and just didn't play with that same not reckless energy, but very aggressive energy that she typically plays with on defense. But then once they got down, it was, I don't know if it was Coach Hughes or it was just Kiki herself, were like, okay, we got to go. And she played that last couple of minutes with that same energy and has that huge basket late in that one. And then obviously they make some big time plays down the stretch. I mean, C. Allen was really, really special in that last minute plus in that semifinal. But in that final, Kiki Woods, 11 for 11 from the field. She had 8 rebounds, 5 steals, 26 total points. She hits 4 free throws in the game as well. Sienna Allen had 13. Those are the 2 that were in double figures. Shannon and Carter combined for 14, the other 14 in the game. But it's just they're obviously well conditioned because they played 6 during the weekend. They only went to 1 on the bench, and you're playing back-to-back days. You're playing twice within 24 hours, and you couldn't tell that. Obviously, your younger kids, you're gonna have some extra energy, but they
to be young.
Yeah, they were.
They had the. I don't know if you guys caught this story too. They had the flu going through the team throughout the week too, so that played a factor. Woods has a unique ability for young guards to watch her. She has a unique ability to be going 100 miles per hour and get her body completely under control at the rim. Like you see a lot of athletes, especially young athletes, that they can go fast.
Yeah.
They can take the ball and they can kind of go fast, maybe out of control, and they get to the rim and they'll throw it up off the rim and the thing will hammer off the backboard and land out by the free throw line. She has a really unique ability to get herself going 100 miles per hour downhill and then get her body completely under control at the rim to put the ball up soft off the rim. I was impressed at her size because I know what the roster says.
Right.
I don't know if I agree with that. I don't know if she's
or the teammates are taller. It could be that.
maybe that's true too. But I was impressed with her unique shot making around the rim too. Her unique ability to kind of create some angles and get the ball up or around whatever she had to do the shot blockers that she faced at that level. But yes, she was really, really fun to watch in that championship game.
And this is something that, people talk about the scheduling and why scheduling matters. And it's not that they had lost a few games. It's that they were pushed in those games. So by being pushed in those games meant when you get to the state semifinal, when you're down by 4 with 1:40 left in the game, you've been in that situation.
Yeah.
You haven't just blown teams out all year.
Right.
You know what it takes to maybe they had lost a lead like that in one of those 4 losses, but they had experienced it. So they came in and you could tell in their faces that they were, I wouldn't say worried, but it was like at least they were like locked in of like, hey, this is what we got to do to get back into this game. So it wasn't a new situation for them. So you go out and you play really, really tough teams, an outstanding schedule. I mean, heck, you get to play Fairland multiple times during the regular season. That's a nice thing. But George Rogers Clark, Ashland Blazer, Olentangy, you play some really outstanding teams throughout the season. I think it was them that beat Bellbrook by like 30, who's one of the better teams in Division III. I mean, they go out and play these really good teams, really tough schedules, and it's not so much. Yes, it's to play really tough teams, but it's to get in those situations, and it's to make it to where when you face those must-win situations in the tournament, where they, to be honest, they hadn't really seen a tough situation up until the Final Four. That's why you do it, though.
Yeah, I thought they beat a really good team too in the final.
Yes.
That's the last thing in my notes on Portsmouth was the Ottawa Glandorf team led by Carson. I won't say the name right, Empford or something like that. Going to Finley, good player. The McKee girl inside was really, really good too. She had the really good game against Fairland, which we'll talk about here in a second. But they were good. I mean, undefeated, and the one girl was a finalist for Miss Basketball, and she could really, really shoot it. But I thought the athleticism of Portsmouth really overwhelmed them a little bit, which says a lot for the ability for Portsmouth at the highest level to still be a little bit bigger, faster, stronger, and certainly every bit of skill.
Yeah, it was a really special team that they beat. Obviously undefeated coming into it. Had actually been up double digits for most of the second half on Fairland before Fairland had a great push
how about that?
Late in that game.
Fairland, which shouldn't surprise you. I mean, those kids are winners. You know what I mean? Like, they got off to a decent start and they were hanging in there, and then, they were going into the fourth quarter. You felt like, okay, they'll definitely have one more run in them. They're not going to just go away, but at this level of play against this level of opponent, are they actually going to be able to come all the way back? Albeit if they didn't just about do it. That showed me a lot. Not that I needed it,
right.
That showed me a lot about their character, about their desire to compete. They've been there and they've done this, and they're trying to get to that next step. And what an amazing career!
Yeah,
for the senior class there at Fairland.
Well, like when they were freshmen, I think they were, kind of surprised by what happened at that state level because they had been so dominant up until that time. Yeah. And Fairland's a team that always goes out and plays a really good schedule as well. So, and then as sophomores, they have the heartbreak coming in the last few seconds there of the semifinal. Last year, Portsmouth kind of had their way with them the third time. And then, this year they come in and you get down, I think it was as much as 16 in that third quarter, and they could have rolled over. Like I
think they only scored 3.
It was 2 in the third quarter.
In the third,
yeah. And it could have been could have been time to just, all right, it's just not to be. But man, they battled back and they got themselves, they gave themselves a chance, and that's all you can ask for. And as you said, that says so much about those 5 seniors, those coaches on the sideline, the coaches that have brought them up through the program, and then the rest of those kids as well. Because, I mean, at one point, they had the 5 seniors, but at one point they were playing 2 seniors, 3 freshmen at one time. In that time of them starting to make the comeback, is they were just rotating different people, and they knew what their job was when they went in. It was either we're going to play with a lot of energy, we're going to get the ball to these 2 seniors, or hey, we're going to spot up, and maybe we got a chance to shoot from the outside. And I think that's why you see Fairland back year after year, and why I think a lot of us think maybe they take a step back next year, but it wouldn't surprise us if they didn't, because of just what that program is, how they're coached, and just everything. But as you mentioned, that senior class is phenomenal. Bailey Russell's going to be their all-time leading scorer, boys or girls, and that boys program is outstanding.
1754, I think it was.
And then, that was one of the things that Derek was going to do during it. I think we still may see a Sienna Allen one coming up too, about her whole.
Yeah,
career.
I love those posts there. She, I mean, obviously an incredible career. Some of those stats were insane. I think it was over 253s. I mean, think about that number for a minute. That's phenomenal. But just shy of 100 wins in a high school basketball career. That's just unbelievable.
And with the schedule they play too. So they get 4 straight regional titles. And it wasn't just Bailey Russell. Was there for 4 years. Addison Godby was going to go on to Stetson to play. And she's I just feel like she's going to be able to play,
I agree with that.
Early, because
I think she has a college game that will translate well.
Yeah, she can handle the ball. She's good inside. She can shoot from the outside, but also, man, she defends at such a high level.
And that's it. Her size, her physicality, and her ability to guard will allow her to go in and compete for playing time, and then a lot of the other stuff will come through that hard work. But I agree with you on the defensive comment you made.
Yeah, and then you have Issa Talaferro, who's she was a 4-year player for them. I know she dealt with some injuries in middle school, and then but man, she was a big time contributor over the last really 4 years. One of those players that maybe the numbers don't jump out at you immediately, but is one of those players that can really step up in a big way when you need them to. You need those types of players. Then you move into the Tegan Leap, or another player that provided them some big time minutes. I know she hit some big shots in that first game against Portsmouth, but also it was a big time player for them. Just one of those kind of glue players as well. And then I thought Addison Cornell had a really nice season for them. Overall, really came on the last 2 years and was that 5th start, or was one of those 5 starters that was a big time difference maker in that program.
We've talked about this throughout the year when you're talking about these elite teams like Fairland. Fairland goes about it a little differently than Portsmouth does. Obviously, it works for both. But when you talk about Fairland's program and you talk about, with Russell's numbers and so forth, there's one ball to go around. You know what I mean? Like, you're only going to score so many points. You're only going to rebound so many times. You're only going to assist so many times. It goes way beyond the numbers. You have to watch the group remember I said about Portsmouth in terms of how they play the game? Same thing can be said for Fairland. You have to watch them play to really appreciate how well they share the ball, how well they defend, how well they do the things that win basketball games that maybe don't always show up in a box score that gets printed out at the end of a state semifinal game. And that's what you appreciate about that Fairland group, is they obviously have done that a little bit to the tune of 97 times in the last 4 years.
And 97 wins in the last 4 years, unbelievable for Coach Buchanan's group. And, just don't want to harp on it too much, but 0 for 10 from the field in that third quarter, and that was what ultimately did it.
Look, and it shows you, again, how good they are and their competitive juice to be able to overcome that and be all the way down under a minute in a game with a legitimate chance to win.
Yeah, down 16, 7 minutes left in the fourth quarter. They go on a 10-0 run to get themselves right back in it. And then just, as we said, just came up a little bit short.
Didn't they have the ball one time with a chance to, and they just couldn't quite get one to go down? But I mean, at that level, the other team on the other side hasn't lost the game. You know what I mean? Like, so it's not like you're just doing it against whoever. But yeah, I mean, it's just it was a pleasure to watch those two area teams go on that stage and represent our coverage area.
Yes, and then let's go over to Unioto. So we're going to move over to Division 4 on that. So obviously things did not go well for the Shermans on Thursday afternoon, but this couple things on that. So obviously things didn't go well, played hard throughout. It was great to see Charlotte Dennis back. She was able to get on the floor for the last minute. But something that I don't know if a lot of people saw. Now, based off where I was at, so Miley Smith goes off. She's getting a big ovation. She signals to the Unioto crowd. It was a cool moment. But then you look down. The entire St. Vincent St. Mary's bench is up clapping for her. They don't need to do that. But that's the respect they had for that type of player. And, it's one of the biggest, if not the biggest, lopsided games in the Final Four history. But they had so much respect for her that they give her the standing ovation when it's not needed. And that's, to me, I feel like that says pretty much all you need to know about what her career was.
Again, it goes way beyond numbers, because numbers are a funny thing. Like, we live in a time in the NBA where a lot of volume numbers are a little different than the previous generation. And I don't want to say it's skewed, but it's different. Yeah. When it comes to someone like Miley, 2160 something, the points are incredible. Okay. Yeah. But it goes back to watching the kid play and then just being in an understanding of wow, we're getting a chance to watch someone who's one of the very best to ever do it. I've told you before, being around Unioto as much as we are, I'll get asked for her to compare different things or whatever. And I'm, at least old enough to where I can make intelligent basketball comments about an Aubrey Evelyn, a Lori McLeod, Natalie Hill. But throughout the entire area, now I'm not old enough to watch a Kelly Downs. I mean, goodness, we had an Olympian. So you know what I mean? She must have been pretty good. Right. But my point is what's cool about that is when you have one of these players come around and it generates that discussion where you start saying those types of names, that's really, really cool. And then you said it earlier. The other thing it does, do you understand how many kids along this run watch her play and dream of being her and dream of being, that's that program and culture thing that we talk about over and over and over and over. Well, through basketball, you start to understand, the type of person she is and the way she handles herself and the different things. All of that stuff goes together. And that's when sports really collide with kind of a real life thing that becomes a really cool thing. So I'm happy for her. She's a kid. The number one thing I probably would respect the most about her is each year of her career, she added something to her game to take her game to another level. She was obviously very, very talented as a freshman, but she's way better as she walks out than when she walked in. And that's saying something when you consider how good she was when she walked in. But that's what I love is the coach in me. I love that her willingness to keep getting better, to add to her game. And because of that, that's what gives me a lot of hope for her at the next level is because she's going to walk in again and you're going to walk into a level of basketball where they're all as athletic as you. Right. Yeah. They're all probably bigger than you. But because of that work ethic and because of that willingness to get better, that gives me a lot of hope that she's going to go on and be very, very successful there as well. Yeah,
I would agree with that completely. So she ends up leading Unioto in a lot of different career stats, but finishes 5th in SVC history and scoring. and was just a dynamic player. She actually was she shares a Unioto record for games played with Maggie Holbert. So those two came in at the same time and really helped. Miley gets the headlines on that, but Maggie was a really steady piece for them for 4 years at one of the guard positions. And even though she didn't really shoot the ball well in that game, I thought she played pretty well. I mean, they shot the ball atrociously bad in the game, but really they didn't have a crazy amount of turnovers. St. Vincent Mary's shot the ball well and really kind of dissected their defense. But when you look at that team, Kira Beard was outstanding all year, averaged right around 15 points a game. She's going to be, she'll probably hit 1,000 points next year as a junior. Charlotte Dennis was a starter for most of that year. And then she gets sick late in the year and wasn't able to play in the regionals and was able to play in this game. And then you had Aiden Dannison, who was a 2-year starter for them. She gets hurt late in the year. So they started in the state tournament, Jillian Matthey, Kylie Puckett, 2 sophomores, who played roughly 18 to 20 games of JV. Yeah. They were not starters.
You gotta be careful saying JV on the air. People don't like that. That level or that word.
But they were players that were not varsity starters until very late in the season or until the tournament. So for this team to make it to the Final Four, I think says a lot about
That's a good point.
A lot about Miley Smith, but also Maggie Holbert, Kira Beard, and then just what those two were able to do, kind of fearlessly step into those. They were really good in the regional games, where Puckett and Matthey, and then they were able to get Dannison back, and then Zoe Detweiler gave them some really good minutes throughout the year as well. But I just think that says a lot about those kids to be able to step into that and kind of play fearlessly in what would be kind of a scary situation for a lot of different kids.
I love that you made that connection with Matthey and Puckett, because you're right. I mean, I watched them play some JV earlier in the year, and I was joking earlier, junior varsity. Yeah. We've said on previous shows that people don't always like that or whatever, but like it is a great reminder of how important it is and how you never know when your number is going to get called. And not only did it get called, it got called on a really big stage, and they were ready. Yeah. They were ready because of it, because they had continued to get better and better and better. As far as the game goes, Unioto got down, 9-0, minus 12 first quarter, and then it just got away. I mean, like we talked about it before, like if you're going to attack this Unioto team, and no one in our area had this personnel, there's 2 ways you could do it. You could be strong and skilled enough to where you could spread them out and just hold the ball and have them chase you a little bit and try to get them in a lower scoring game. Or if you were bigger, faster, stronger, and you could just roll the ball out and get them to play. And that's kind of what this team did. They were just bigger and better, and they just went out and said, okay, you score, we'll score. And then they scored at a level that we're not used to seeing from a rebounding and an overall offensive output that we're not used to seeing against Unioto.
Yeah, one of the things that St. Vincent Mary's did defensively was they just switched everything. So you'd see Miley get a screen and get a switch, and then all of a sudden be a 6'4", really athletic girl guarding your two. It's like, okay, well,
they didn't even win it.
Yeah, they didn't win it. Yeah,
that's what's crazy about. No matter how far you go, you always find a level. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. Like, so we're sitting here talking about this Akron St. Vincent St. Mary team, and then they were -9 in the state championship game against another team.
And I will say this though: when you get to those press conferences, you do hear certain things, and where Portsmouth, when they talked, it wasn't as satisfied that they had gotten through. It felt like St. Vincent Mary was pretty proud of what they had done.
Sure.
And I don't know if they realize, like, hey, once you get up a certain amount, it's kind of, you're just pouring it on at that point. The other team that just had to battle back the day before, they were pretty darn good too. Like, you don't just get there by accident. So
that's fair.
Yeah, so kind of, I was still surprised because how good they looked that day before, but at the same time, I was like, I could see it because of just, it was, kind of not the kids puffing their chest out, but maybe someone else. Yeah. But so overall, a really nice season for that Unioto group, and another team that had an outstanding season and really came very close, and the most competitive of the the 7 divisions was that Division 4, just outstanding games. All 3 games in that Division 4 came down to the final seconds. Circleville ends up losing a heartbreaker to Bellevue. Just an outstanding effort by that Circleville team.
Listen, I'm the first to admit on the girls' side, we kind of sold Circleville short throughout the year, and then we even did it again coming into this. Just in looking at the teams on paper, and I hadn't had a chance to see these teams play in person or anything. You just felt like Circleville was the one up against the really tough, and that's not the case at all. I mean, they more than belong. They jumped out. They were up 11-7. They were up 21-18 at halftime, and they were playing really, really well. And they lost the heartbreaker, but I mean, they more than belong. They went toe to toe. I was impressed with Blakeman, with her size and her ability to handle the ball and kind of use her skill and her size and her basketball IQ to kind of handle some of the pressure. Obviously, we know what Edgerton can give. Just real impressed with the way Circleville performed on that biggest stage.
Yeah, Blakeman ends up with 16 points, 9 rebounds in the game. She also had 4 assists and 5 steals. Yeah. Really nice game for her.
Really
and I mean,
good.
I think she was one of the more underrated players in our area because sometimes the stats wouldn't pop out at you. I know her shooting percentage on the year wasn't really good, but if you saw her in person, like when we saw her in that Unioto game, she was the best player on the court in the first half. And then, it just kind of caught up with them in that second half, but then they go and beat like a Harvest Prep, and you could just tell like this team can play. This is a team that had 3 coaches this year. 2 coaches through, 2 coaches left before the season officially began in late November. And then, Coach Blakeman comes over and steps in and just carries them to a league title and, on to their first ever regional championship in school history and then all the way to the Final Four where they really competed at a high level with the Big Red the Lady Red, my bad, from Bellevue.
We're going to talk about this on the boys' side a little bit too in a little bit, but like the thing about Circleville that really impressed me is it's really impressive when teams know who they are and they have a unique ability to almost give you no choice but to play their style. Mm-hmm. I've only watched a couple teams, and even those teams, not even for a whole game, be able to get them out of their identity and who they are. I would say Unioto did it for about 11 minutes to finish the game. Yeah, right around that 3-minute mark of the third quarter. And that's about it. I mean, this Circleville team understands who they are, how they want to play, and they give you no choice but to play that way. And because of that, they're a really efficient basketball team. I questioned at that level if they were going to shoot it well enough from the perimeter, but they kind of had some kids step up to space the floor for Blakeman and Edgerton just enough. Hey, hats off to them. Like I said, what an incredible run.
Yeah, Mallory McConnell hit a big 3 for him in that one. She also had 8 rebounds in the game. Brooklyn Kramer, man,
plays hard.
Yeah, plays hard, and you couldn't tell for an instant this year that she was coming off an injury from last year. Juliana Sims-Ross, I thought came on really well the second half of the year for them. And then, you had Kaylee West, Jocelyn McLaughlin gave some really big minutes throughout the year for them. Notice
how many kids you just said, too, that were part of the volleyball success and stuff. And so, again, after a while, it doesn't become coincidental. It becomes like we're talking about competitive kids. We're talking about winners.
Yes, winners for sure, because you've seen it in volleyball. It was their best team they've had. It was 1984 since they had won a district. They're going to be very good again. Yeah. I mean, what a year for the Circleville school
absolutely.
So far. And maybe their best boys sport is coming up. It's because that baseball team went to a regional final last year. So it's kind of, to me, in a way, a little bit what Minford was last year, where they just kept knocking on the door of deep tournament runs in every sport. They had went to the Final Four in baseball the year before, then they go in soccer, and then they go in basketball, and then their girls' sports were outstanding as well. And it just feels like Circleville is maybe a little more northern of what that Minford team was. Same color scheme as well. So, but also when you look at this team, obviously it's a huge piece. It's Maddie Blakeman. That's the senior. I mean, you've got got those kids coming back next year. That's a huge piece that they're going to have to replace. But with Edgington and Kramer, and then kind of what Sims Ross was able to do late in the year, McConnell just keeps getting better and better. This is a team that is going to be very, very good once again next year, especially in that Division 4.
Yeah, the biggest challenge is going to be for a lot of those kids you just said, not necessarily the scoring or the points or the tempo, because they'll play the same tempo. They'll do a lot of that. I think it's going to be the ball handling.
Yeah.
They're going to have to dribble, pass, and catch cleanly and get a lot better with the ball if they're going to play that tempo and force people to play that tempo, because I think that's where Maddie really was the lead in that. Not just the scoring. She was the lead in controlling that tempo, and at her size, she could handle the ball. Then you try to trap her, she could throw over the top. That'll be the thing that I'll look for early in the preseason next year to see how they are coming in terms of taking care of the basketball.
Yeah, that's going to be the biggest thing for them as far as Circleville goes. So let's go to, congratulations to, Circleville, Unioto, Fairland, all getting to the Final Four. Obviously, congratulations to Portsmouth for winning another state championship. But one team, we mentioned them a little bit last week, was Fayetteville.
Absolutely.
They were a 2-point loss against St. Henry, who goes on to win the Division 6 state championship. This is a Fayetteville team with a lot coming back next year. Just how special could it be when they move over to the Southeast? And how much more difficult is that going to be for, we'll use Waterford and Federal Hawking? That's a loaded Division 6.
Well, we talked a lot about the TVC Hawking, which kind of hits a lot on that Division 6. And you're right, with Fed Hawk and Waterford in the year they had. But the Fayetteville lost by 2. I watched St. Henry play over the weekend. I guess all it does is it gives you the proof, if you needed some, that we have a lot of teams right here in our coverage area that are ready to take the step of performing on the top level. Remember, we did the segment on the 7 divisions and this and that or whatever. It gives schools of all sizes a little bit more of a fair opportunity to compete at the highest level. And I think you see that in Division 6 for sure, because St. Henry, if I'm not mistaken, as much as they've had a lot of sports success, that hasn't been the case in girls basketball. It's my understanding that was a lot of the first time for them too. So, that gives you a lot of confidence, and I would say makes you really hungry if you're Fayetteville going into the summer.
Yeah, and then, for them, they're a well-coached team with a lot of kids coming back. Look for them, as I mentioned, Fed Hawk, Waterford just getting better and better throughout. Division 7 next year, it's going to be Green. Seems like it's going to be Green's time in that Division 7.
Same situation. Strasburg Franklin. Watch them. Man, they could guard.
Yeah.
They could guard. They in the state championship, I was starting to wonder if they were going to give up 10.
Right.
They're big, they're strong, and again, that's who Eastern got knocked out by.
Yeah.
So you look at Eastern and Green. I think it's a fair assumption to think that all the way on the Elite 8, maybe Final Four stage next year, we're going to be represented there, and that's exciting.
Yeah, well, because Eastern doesn't graduate anyone either.
Yeah.
And Eastern's coming off of a season where they won 2 games a year ago. They won 19 games this year. We've talked about them, and man, it's going to be an exciting time for them. Circleville, that's another team for next year that we're both really excited about. Obviously, Portsmouth. I mean, you're going to graduate a Division I player, and then KK Mays is going to go on and play at Shawnee State as well. So I mean, you're losing 2 college basketball players, but then you just Haven Carter is outstanding. Bryce Shannon's outstanding. I keep saying Shannon for some reason. Bryce Shannon's outstanding, and then obviously Kiki Woods only goes 11 for 11 in the state championship.
I think the big thing, and this wasn't so impressive about Portsmouth.
Yeah.
You can't assume it.
Mm-hmm.
You have to go to work. And because, like, when you think of a Chesapeake boys there, I remember Dewey and I doing a game last year, and they lose to the Memphis team. And then you think they'll be all the way back. And then this year, and they were really, really good. They ran into a really good team.
Yeah.
We'll talk about later. But, like, you can't just assume because other teams are going to get really good too. And other people are going to be really hungry to take what you have. You're going to wear a little bit of a bullseye. So I think that's something to really watch going in the next year. But you just rattled off just about every division all the way through, and we're going to have a great opportunity to compete at the highest level.
Well, then if you look at Division 4, there's a chance Unioto drops back to Division 4. They're going to be a really tough team once again. Obviously, you lose a Miley Smith, and that's going to be a big difference. But the 3 starters back from the state, and then a 4th starter that started the entire, or pretty much the last 2 years before injuries late in the year. That's not even mentioning McLean, Hillsborough, who have some outstanding players.
Yeah.
Man, it's a deep area, and then I think we both think Fairland's still going to be strong.
No question.
Piketon and Eastern Brown are going to be really good.
Piketon and Eastern Brown got to feel like it's their turn.
Yeah,
and obviously those 2 teams will have a lot to say about it.
North Adams has an outstanding lead guard and 2 bigs that can really play and fill it up as well. So he's got some. Adina's got one of the top players in the area.
And here's the thing: I hate to say this, but in 2026, you have to if you're giving the proper analysis. You always worry about, will everybody play?
Right.
You know what I mean? Like in today's specialization, you might lose a kid to an indoor track. You might lose a kid, I want to play a little bit more club volleyball, or hey, I just want to play.
Right.
And then the other thing is, what kind of movement do you get?
Yes.
I hate to talk about the elephant in the room, but like, all of a sudden you get kids that move from here to here. It's kind of like my Ludwig Oiberg yesterday on the back 9, where all of a sudden you get the 2 or 3 shot swings when you hit it in the water. Yeah. You make eagle, I make, double bogey, and the whole tournament changes. Right. It's that's huge if that kind of stuff happens. So that's something you have to at least put out there, because it can certainly play a factor.
Yeah, because who do we expect to have 4 starters back that maybe only has 2 because of a movement or just not play? Or like what happened with Green this summer, you had a player, well, it was in the fall, had a player move in, but your point guard gets hurt.
Yeah.
So, I mean, you have these things happen. And
it's just the reality of the time we live in. We're not talking about, who did what or if they should have or what. We're not saying that. We're just saying that if you're going to talk about next year in 2026, the reality is that can happen.
Yeah. And then also, I mean, like we said with Circleville, I think they expected the coach to be back and wasn't. So, I mean, what happens coaching movement as well.
Sure.
So, I mean, who goes into administration, who just decides, you know what, I'm good. It steps out. Who steps in there? Like, does one big time coach leave and then another coach from another school come in? And that just, there's all kinds of things that happen. So we can talk about how excited we are for next season.
Yeah.
But we really won't know until about next season what we're going to see. So it's going to be an exciting year no matter what happens. I just hope it kind of goes the way that we're hoping it does and what we're thinking. And that way it can be as good as what we think it can be. So I think I just said a lot of cans and could be's and whatnot.
The final thought on it is we have more and more teams with the opportunity to do elite things. And when you watch the product on the court, going back a couple weeks on overtime, you can't convince me it's watered down at all. No. I think it's great opportunity for teams and all size schools to do some unique things.
Mm-hmm. I agree with that. No, so one of the things I said before we get into boys basketball, one of the things I had said was like, oh, it's a really exciting time for our area as far as kind of the media coverage and everything. I just keep seeing highly qualified people that are going to be doing like individualized training as well. We have people that do training in here in the dugout. And you're seeing all kinds of really smart people doing individualized training as well. I think we're going to see an even higher level out of our area. It might be a few years because I think a lot of those people are working with 5th through 8th grade coming up.
Which is even better.
Yeah, which is even better. I think we're going to see some really highly skilled kids coming up through in the next few years. Hopefully they get some, some teamwork stuff as well as individualized.
But real quick, I don't want to get too far off. What's so awesome about that in the modern day is we grew up with camps.
Yeah.
Well, kids don't really go to camps now because the expectation is for them to go play on their AAU team or go to team camp we weren't allowed to go to team camp. So we went to individual camp.
Yeah.
So I think the individual training, especially at that age, excites me because they're not just going out and playing, they're going out and actually working on their game, their footwork, their ball handling, their shot, the different skill set that they need to. So that's a great point that you're making there. I'm excited to see a growth, especially when it's with good people.
Yeah, and it's when people know what they're talking about that can help you buy in a little bit more, and it just helps get better and grow the game as a whole. So looking forward to seeing more and more of those, players that went on to play in college, just people that have coached the game to be able to do those trainings as well. So looking forward to the game growing in those aspects. So let's move on to the boys basketball side. We're going to go through because we did not have a team make it to the Final Four.
Yeah.
So we're going to kind of break it down by division. What I want to do this time, I want to go in reverse order because we've started at Division 3 and gone down. So let's start at Division 7, which was where our latest game was, because it ended up getting pushed back another day because of
Man, what a heartbreaker.
Yeah, because of the weather. And really, if we're just talking Division 7, it was 2 heartbreakers.
Yeah, it really was,
Because Southern had a 4-point lead in overtime against Malvern, ended up losing that game. Couple threes, kind of broke their backs in that one. And then you look at Fairfield. Fairfield up by 10 with 5:24 to go, and they end up getting outscored 14-1 in the last 5:24.
Yeah.
Had a couple of shots at the line that would have tied it. And then when I looked through the stats made sense on why they were missed. Just wasn't a very good overall free throw shooter. But just a heartbreaker for Fairfield. They were 3 points away from their first ever trip to the Final Four. Malvern, to their credit, just battled in both those games to get their first ever trip to the Final Four. What can you say about this Fairfield team and what they kind of dealt with throughout the season?
Yeah, the Malvern team obviously living right? They in all seriousness, they obviously did the necessary things at winning time, and you do it in the semifinal, and then you do it again in the final. After a while, it's not by accident, right?
Yeah.
So give them a lot of credit, because this just as easily could have been an all SOSA area final, Southeast District final with Southern and Fairfield.
Mm-hmm.
But I thought Fairfield was really, really good all year long, and I thought they had everything that they needed to make a big-time run, and that's what they're able to do, following the updates from our Carson Francis. And, man, they were right there, like you said, about 5 and change to go, and you're up 10, and you think you're in control, and it just kind of gets away from you a little bit. I guess what I would say about Fairfield is this. What I love, if you go back to when you and I had them early in the year at Eastern,
Mm-hmm.
and then I would have been with Dewey, correct? And the last time I watched them in person.
Yep.
And if I had to talk about the growth they made from start to finish, Friend and Smith have been incredible for a while now. The post play has been a presence for a while now. But I thought Caleb Rice was the X factor. I thought as the year went on, I thought early in the year you could really shrink the floor on Friend and Smith. And they didn't have a whole lot of ways to keep help from coming or punish help for coming. Obviously, down there at the combo and into the regional game, the ability of Rice to step out with a lot of confidence and shoot the basketball and the way he was able to defend, I thought he was a big-time performer. And it's kind of intriguing for them to see those 3 perimeter guys coming back for one more run at this. But no, look, there's nothing I can say that's going to make that sting less. I mean, you're 5 minutes from the Final Four and you're up 10. You obviously want to win the game, expect to win the game, probably should have won the game, but you didn't. You know what I mean? And it's one of those where still doesn't take away from an unbelievable run and what they were able to accomplish and do for that community with the Elite Eight run.
Yeah, and they were, as you mentioned, 5 minutes away. Not a ton of turnovers. They didn't shoot it very well from the free throw line, 16 of 27 in the game.
Yeah,
but they only hit 4 threes in the game. And they were still up 10 with 5 minutes left.
Yeah.
I think if you would have told the Fairfield faithful that, you're only going to hit 4 threes and you're going to have a chance to win it, I don't know if they would have, fully believed it. You mentioned Friend and Smith. They were outstanding all season long. Friend averages 16.7 points a game. Brody Smith, 19.8 points a game. But man, I thought Zach Ashrak, I thought really played well down the stretch as well.
Ashrak plays really hard.
Yeah, but man, Quentin McIntosh is going to be the one that
I agree.
is going to be just a really tough one to replace. Here's, I'm going to start with the White Oak game, and this is going on. He averaged 10.7 points or rebounds a game. In the White Oak game, January 16th, 15 points, 17 rebounds. The next game, 12 points, 15 rebounds. 11 points, 12 rebounds. 11 points, 11 rebounds, which actually came in a loss to a Botkins team that was a regional runner-up.
Yeah.
Then they play Unioto. He has 6 points, 8 rebounds. That was a 4-point loss. That was their last loss before Sunday. He had 6.7 rebounds against White Oak the second time. Then it gets kind of crazy on the rebounds. 10 rebounds, 10 rebounds, 11, 13. They had 8 and 7 in a game over Fed Hawk that they won by 27. But then it gets to district play. 14 points, 15 rebounds. Against South Webster, district final, 8 points, 12 rebounds. Against Shekinah Christian, only 5 points, but 13 rebounds. And then in his last career game, 10 points, 20 rebounds in that game against Malvern. He gave them a chance because of his size, toughness, and just how hard he was competing. I thought he had such a huge growth throughout the season. You mentioned Caleb Bryce. If they can get more growth like that from 2 more players next year, man, this
pay attention to Joel Matthews.
Yeah.
Like as a sophomore, he started to come in and play a little bit. They're going at it in practice each and every night, and that's going to grow. Watching him grow throughout the year into another off season, because as you said, there's not a lot of pressure on a post player to come in and just start scoring 20 a night. Mm-hmm. They need him to be efficient. They need him to rebound the basketball and so forth. The big shoes to fill for sure. And don't be surprised because, again, people listen to the show know I'm a huge fan of Griffin Friend. I think he's a really modern day point guard is what I call it. Don't be surprised even from the point guard position next year if he changes his defensive role and averages like close to 9 or 10 rebounds a game.
Yeah, it's.
Do you have that in front? What's the average rebound this year? Do you know?
5.9.
Yeah, don't be surprised at all if that jumps 2 or 3 more next year.
And that's honestly what his brother did.
Yeah.
I mean, he just kind of became. Maybe he scored a hair less, but he just did so many different things. Yeah. And Griffin is, to me, almost the exact same almost, which is
he's a big time player.
A huge compliment there. And with what Caleb Rice was able to do the second half of the year, he had 8 games where he was in double figures on the year. 5 came in the regular season, 3 came in the last 5 games of the tournament. So,
and confidence is a real thing. I mean, you're going to take that into the off season now, and that motivation to get better and better and better. And if he comes out and can really be the floor spacer, Smith and Friend are going to be a handful, which they are already. But imagine in the scenario with Smith where you can't send help and he stays in the one-on-one, he creates a shot whenever he wants it.
Yep, they're gonna need a couple players to step up big in the offseason, which was seriously what Caleb Rice did. But they've got a chance to have another really special year next year. And
I don't have their roster in front of me. The lefty that played a little bit for him off the bench earlier, number 24,
Hoskins and Burgess.
Hoskins,
yeah,
and
both
then
were
Burgess
juniors,
too. See, so again, there's people there. There's people there. It's just a matter of the off season becomes so crucial in terms of getting the work and adding something to your game.
Well, if they can do kind of what Ashrak did this year, where he didn't play a whole lot as a junior, he came in. He only averaged 3 points a game, but he shot 36% from 3. So you have to respect that.
Yeah.
And it felt like he really came on late in the year for them. And that's what they're going to need out of guys like Matthews, Hoskins, and Burgess to really fill in those couple roles that are going to be missed to graduation.
Yeah.
So let's go to Division 6.
I do want to give a shout out. We don't have to spend a lot of time on Southern. I just want because they were that close to being in that regional final, and you never know how that game goes. So I had a chance to see. I'd watched them so much on film and some. Getting a chance to actually watch them in person there at the district level, really, really talented group. led by two outstanding players. I just wanted to shout that out there because I thought they too lost a heartbreaker to the same team. Or we could be sitting here talking about them on the way to the
Right, exactly. And Reed Brenniger is going to be just an unbelievable. He was, we talk about Smith and Friend, how good they were. Brenniger was the district player of the year.
Yeah,
in
rightfully
Division
so.
7.
Yeah, he's terrific. Yeah.
Yeah, so they're going to have to find another guard to replace Chandler because what he did was just almost irreplaceable. Like, I know we mentioned, I had said it last week, it was the Kiki Woods comparison a little bit on just the energy and can just make things happen all throughout the game was a lot of Andre Chandler, and that's a huge compliment there. So if they can find something there, they're really well coached. Brenniger is going to make them a really
well. Brenniger will fill that if they don't,
Yeah.
because if all of a sudden you don't have someone to do the ball handling for you, and you have to start adding that to your game too, he'll fill that a little bit.
Yes.
So you're right. I agree with you there. That's a big hole to fill into the summer for the Tornadoes.
Yeah, and they should be at the top of the TVC hockey next year. So maybe jump a couple games in the schedule, maybe help, because I do think where I talked about that helping Portsmouth playing that tougher schedule. I think with Southern they really only played one close game the entire year, so I do think maybe that came up to bite them a little bit late. But I mean, at the same time, I don't
Has to a little bit.
Yeah, but at the same time, I don't think you knew Brenniger was coming back. So maybe that schedule was not.
Kind of goes back to what we talked about there at the end of the girls' segment of like, it's just hard to talk about today's basketball without that coming up.
Yeah, it does make an impact in a lot of different ways. So let's look to Division 6 now. Best season in Portsmouth West history.
Yeah.
I mean, it's hard to say otherwise. They had not won a league since 1985, same year they won a district. The only time they won a district was also in 1985. They came up 3 points short in that one back in 1985 of getting to the regional final. This West team played so well late in the year, and they were only down 3 against a Berlin Highland team that is outstanding. And they had it down to 1. They had a couple of different chances to take the lead, just weren't able to do it. And you could tell down the stretch they were just pretty gassed because of just kind of how Highland plays defensively. I don't know if maybe Chillicothe was more physical, but there wasn't a Division 6 team that was as physical as Berlin Highland was defensively. And they didn't foul. They did a lot of guarding with their body. So West wasn't really able to get to the line. You could just tell late in the game they were pretty drained physically. And really what Highland was doing, moving the ball offensively as well. So they're moving the ball and making like a Kegley run all over the court. But that final score, kind of like we'll talk about the Maysville game a little bit too with Circleville, that final score is not indicative of what the game was. Like, it ends up being a 13-point game. It felt like it was probably a 6 to 8 point game is what it probably should have been. But that team, very senior heavy, 4 really good seniors: Will Kegley, Logan McIntyre, Christian Carrasco, Corbin Miller. Just a phenomenal season for West. And I'll talk about it here in a minute, but I just hope the people from West, and you could tell they appreciated it when they were there. Hope they appreciate everything that team did, from how good their seniors were, how unbelievable those guys that played the back line did. They're all listed at like 5'7". I was listed at 5'11".
They had such a unique 1-3-1 personnel. It was the perfect defense for them to play.
And how well they're coached because of that. Like, it was almost a perfect storm of everything over the last 6 years that what Coach McClanahan and his staff have done, using this senior class and then balancing them with the underclass as well, and that gets you to a regional final.
Yeah, the 1-3-1 is such a unique personnel. You put the fast guy on the baseline, he gets corner to corner, he's getting around the post. So again, you think little, but it has nothing to do really with the post or the rebounding, because all you're doing is dropping 6'4", 6'5" from
Yeah.
the wings on the backside both ways. So, yeah, you're right. I mentioned this on the Circleville girls side. It applies to the West boys. It'll apply to Ironton boys. These teams that have this unique ability to make you play exactly the way they want you to play, West has been like that all year.
Yeah.
We've had West multiple times where, I find myself saying, whoever the opponent might be, they'd really pick this tempo up.
Yeah.
Really pick this tempo up. And it's so easy for me to sit there and say, but they're old. They don't turn it over. They're pretty big. They throw over the top of you. They take care of the ball. And then with that 1-3-1, they stretch you out. And even against the team, the level of Highland, there's some free throws late, some different things. This was like a high 30, low 40 pace, which again, give West a lot of credit all the way to a regional championship level. They're still playing the tempo that they want to play and giving themselves a chance to be competitive. I agree with you. I thought there was that one little stretch there where in the quarter court, West could go through spurts where they just would struggle to find offense. I thought that happened to them a little bit.
Yeah, and it was when Highland hit the back-to-back threes and West had empty possessions. It just kind of, that felt like, okay, that's probably it.
And West needs to create just a little bit off the defense to generate enough points. That's how they get stuck in the mid-30s in a game like this, is because obviously when you get to this level, the Highlands of the world are a little bit more difficult to turn over than whoever on your regular season schedule maybe throughout the year.
It felt like they turned over Highland a lot, but then when you looked at the numbers, it was like 10.
Well, but the type of turnover.
Oh, well, and I was going to say, there were a lot of live ball ones, but it'd be live ball ones be like a deflected pass where team players would be diving on the floor after it and West would end up with it.
Yeah.
Well, you're not getting a run out on that. Now, they did have the one kind of weird one in the late in the second quarter when it felt like West was getting back into the game, where they just kind of, Kegley picks them up in the full court. And they just kind of lost the ball and he just picks it up for a layup. It was something you'd never see out of Highland. Highland at times looked kind of flustered with what they were facing in the night, but where you see the teams, they see how they're coached, how their expectations are. You could just tell that they weren't really rattled late, and because of that, they were able to hit a couple of big shots, and that's what ultimately pulled away for them. But overall, just an outstanding season for West. And what I wanted to mention was Will Kegley, Division VI District Player of the Year. It felt like at times when they needed any baskets, he was getting them in that game to keep them in it. And it just kind of seemed like it caught up a little bit down the stretch where he was having to work so hard throughout it. But man, he's one of those players that, for West, I just hope those people appreciate what he was able to do, because he was a player where if he plays with a different tempo, he's probably scoring over 1,500 points. But instead, he gets over 1,000, but maybe aren't going to be the numbers that you're going to see at the end are going to just like blow your mind because of the tempo they played. It feels like he could have gone elsewhere and maybe put up even more points and maybe had more success over the 4 years. But instead, he stays, builds through, and because of that, he's going to be a legend on the West Side because of just everything he's done.
Well, he becomes the staple of who they were defensively.
Yeah.
Like when you think of the unique defense, I talked about them playing the 1-3-1. He was the entire point. I mean, literally, of the defense in terms of his ability to just take games over. Think about their semifinal win, another outstanding local team in Peoples. Held them to 32. You know what I mean? Like, it's like that Peoples team, they just they like to get up and down the court and get shots up and do whatever, and West just wasn't going to allow them to do it. I know McClary had a really good district tournament and on into the regional semi there, but he
scored 15 in that game. Nobody else scored more than 6.
Yeah, but again, it's so difficult to truly get penetrate kick because everywhere you go, you've got that wingspan and length or whatever. So obviously, when you were talking about the numbers, I agree with you. I think what happens is there's for people that really love basketball, you hope they appreciate what the coaching staff was able to do in creating a defense that absolutely matched their personnel perfectly.
Yeah, they held a People's team that averaged 70 points a game after that game to 32 points.
32.
Yeah, and it was just absolute.
Well, the whole game, I'm sitting there thinking, like, Peoples has got to hate this tempo. Peoples has got to hate this tempo. You know what I mean? It's just one of those where credit the West because they figured out a way to get those kids to buy into, hey, this is who we are. This is how we're going to play. Because it just takes, here's the thing. That sounds like it's easy, right? It's not easy at all with high school kids. You get a couple kids that decide that they aren't going to buy in and play that way, they can completely derail that entire philosophy. But there is obviously complete buy-in all the way across the roster, and that's a lot of credit to the coaching staff.
Well, and then just more of their defense, they gave up 48 points to Highland, who averaged 62 points a game. So you hold them well under their average. Against Valley in the district final,
How impressive was that?
held them to 27 points. Valley averaged 57.
No,
held them 30 points
that
below.
was
Like
impressive.
that defense was unbelievable throughout the postseason. And Coach McClanahan, as we've said multiple times here and on the Coaches Call-In show, just done a phenomenal job with that program. And we saw them in JV as well. They've got some talent. I mean, it may take a step back just because of what they have graduating, what they've relied on them for. But man, they've got some really nice pieces. They've got that those backline kids that have played super hard. But just moving on, another one. And this is something Coach McClanahan said after as well. So I kind of want to point on it before we go. Logan McIntyre. Think about all the winning he did over the last 4 years. Because he was at Northwest as a freshman and sophomore. They have their best team in years. They get to the regionals 2 years ago. He's a starter. I think he hit 5 threes in the district final. Then he goes over to West, and he goes with the West team that hadn't won a whole lot. The first half of the year last year, they were really good, and then he has to sit the second half. And then this year, they have their best season in school history. He's a 1,300 point kid if he stays at Northwest. But instead, he sacrifices through with the transfer. He has to sit. He just goes over and he becomes their number 2 guy, and he's really good at it. And because of that, it helps them get to a regional final for the first time in school history.
Again, we've been talking about it on multiple occasions during the show here. Whatever your opinions are of those things or whatever, that's the reality of the modern day high school game. And you're going to have these movements, and you're going to have different combinations of kids playing together. And when you're lucky enough to come across that type of thing where you're able to combine that level of athleticism and length is the word that comes to mind with the West team, it adds up you're putting together a unique roster, and therefore you're getting unique things that your school hasn't had in a long, long time.
Yes, and it was a special season on the West side. So let's jump to, we'll talk about those different teams when we get around to next season as well. So that'll be kind of how I want to get about that. But we'll go to Division 5. Ironton comes up just 3 points short against West Muskingum, who earns their first ever trip to the Final Four. And it was a game where offensively Ironton did not play well. They shot 29% from the field. This might be my biggest compliment I'll ever give anyone on here. When you shoot 29% and you have a chance to still win a title without forcing that many turnovers, because they didn't force a ton of turnovers, they shot so poorly from the field, but it's because of how those kids play.
Yeah.
Because how hard they worked, how well they played defense, how well they rebounded. They gave themselves a chance on what was probably their worst shooting night of the season. They give themselves a chance. And I think for Ironton, that should be something that they should, Coach Stevens said afterwards he wanted to build a blue-collar team. There's no more blue-collar way to describe a team than you shot 29% and you almost won. Then, you sat down and guarded. You controlled the ball. and you rebounded the basketball, and I was just utterly impressed with Ironton, even in a loss.
You just rattled off everything that allows them to play the tempo. That's been a big theme for me today on the show. Circleville girls, we just talked about it.
Yeah.
For people who are fast forwarding through to their favorite parts, we talked about it with West. Now we're talking about with Ironton. You look at what Ironton did with Chesapeake a couple times this year. You look at them here. In both of their regional games, they're coming from behind. Right, they get off to a bad start. Eastern Brown was really good early, and then Ironton comes all the way back and gets the thing tied going into the fourth quarter, and then they take over the final quarter. Same way here, West Muskingum led this game early. They fight it all the way back to tie it at, I think, 37 going in the final quarter. So it's the ability to have a culture piece in place of no matter how bad we play offensively, and Ironton's a talented team offensively, but no matter how bad we play offensively, we're not going to turn it over. We're going to rebound it, and we're going to guard. And if you do those things and you understand the tempo, this is another team that has just totally understood who they are, how they want to play, and that basketball IQ and that buy-in from each and every player has put them in a chance to be successful every night out. I mean, you're talking about a team that you don't need to leave one hand to count the number of losses on the year. That's not by accident. Obviously a really talented team led by a couple really, really good players. But that's what jumped out at me was playing from behind, playing ahead, whatever it was. We're going to play a certain tempo, and you're going to play it as well because we're not going to give you any other choice but to play it.
Yeah, Ashton Lane was really good in that game, 22 points, 14 rebounds. He dealt with some foul trouble, but still was able to perform at a really high level. Bryson Mullins had 13 in the game, and then after that, that's where it got pretty tight for them because they just weren't able to get the extra scoring that they had been able to get.
And I don't want to put words in your mouth, but I know, and as teams go on, we get a little bit more of a rooting interest, which maybe we're not supposed to do. But again, it's just natural, right? Yeah. I don't want to put words in your mouth, but I know you felt like maybe he was officiated tough in terms of playing through some contact on the offensive.
Yeah, they shot one free throw once the ball was tipped off.
Yeah.
So, and with how hard Ashton Lane gets to the basket, it was a really tough whistle for him in the game.
Yeah.
And really, West Wisconsin wasn't really. I mean, they only shot 10 free throws.
That's just basketball.
Yeah, and it was just kind of there just weren't a whole lot of whistles. So, as he gets even stronger this year, he's going to be able to play through that even more. I was just impressed with his energy and effort. Max
thought Ison had a big postseason too. Yeah. He really kind of gave him a lift there.
Yep, and then Maddox Markle was really good at the convo as well. And then you look at like a Caden Edwards who just does little things, and and I'm trying to think of the name offhand of the shooter.
Mullins?
No, not Mullins. The other, the one who hit the big three for them in the to beat Gallia.
Lane, Markle,
Carson Freeman.
Yeah. So, yes.
Freeman with a really good defensive player who hit a couple big shots for them. Man, I really like how that team kind of came together late. You mentioned Ison, Zane Williams. No one plays harder than him. It's just a good group of kids that play really hard, and maybe they had a little chip on their shoulder from the football situation.
Sure.
But
but
if there was a chip on their shoulder, they used it to go towards basketball and do it the right way. They played hard. They played fundamental. They hit some big shots. They play really.
Do you think with the Chesapeake team coming back that we had highlighted from what they accomplished last year, do you feel like that played a role where Ironton was able to fly under the radar just a little bit? I don't know. I mean, like I think we all knew Ironton was going to be good, but I think a lot of times, people like us are sitting here doing preview shows on the OVC, and the first thing we say is like Chesapeake just went to the regional final.
Well, and pretty much what we had talked about, or at least me, was hey. Ashton Lane's going to play really hard. He's a really fun player to watch. Ashton Lane, which obviously he was their best player throughout the year. But where you're not even mentioning those other guys. Yeah. Well, not mention them, and then Bryson Mullins just goes out and hits 60-plus threes on the year. Yeah. And you had just several pieces, 23 and 3, for a team that it felt like they lost a lot from last year, but at the same time, they were still just outstanding. 65 made threes on the year for Bryson Mullins, and
That'll do.
Ison hits 40. It's just, yeah.
It goes back to what we were talking about earlier with some different teams. That's the floor spacing. That doesn't get enough credit for how good Lane is because, you start sending extra help on Lane, you're going to pay the price, and you're going to pay it 3 at a time.
Yeah, yeah. Oh, yeah. That's a good way to break it down. And Coach Stevens wouldn't say it after the game, but I will. Ashton Lane averaged 6+ free throw attempts a game, and he shot 1 in that game. In a game where he shot 18 shots inside, 17 of them inside the paint. Knocked down a 3 also, but 17 shots inside the paint with how hard he drives. Shot 1 free throw. It's
That's fair.
Yeah. But overall, I mean, it was the same both ways, so it was just just how it was. But overall, an outstanding season for Ironton. We don't want to sleep on what Eastern Brown did this season as well.
No. We've been in love with them from the start, and I think they've had an unbelievable year, and they return a lot.
Yeah, they return a lot. And the biggest thing in that game against Ironton was Matthew Dick got in foul trouble. Yeah. Once he got in foul trouble and they took out that rim protector, that made it to where Lane was able to just go crazy in that third quarter. And then once he's able to go crazy, even when Matthew Dick returns to the lineup, he's able to kick it out. And Ison hit some huge shots in that game. But I love that Eastern Brown team. They are loaded.
The way they started the game, I thought, hang on, if this game doesn't get closer in the second quarter, this is going to be the first time you really get to watch Ironton play from behind in the second half. Yeah. But the key was they were able to cut the lead in half, get it back to about 5 at the half, I think it was. And then into the third quarter, they were able to control tempo. So I think it'd been really interesting to see if Eastern could have controlled that game another 4 minutes.
Yeah, and I get a text on the way back of like, wait, Ironton won that game? I'm like, yeah, they won it kind of easy, too. They ended up winning by 14. Yeah. That was a game that was tied going into the fourth quarter, and just ultimately, once they were able to kind of spread it out.
31 all going into, so, I mean.
24-10 fourth quarter.
I mean, that tells you everything you need to know there. And I don't think we give Ironton enough credit because of their defense and their tempo to. Sometimes we don't give them enough credit for how explosive they can be, too, because they're very talented.
Exactly. So, looking at that Eastern Brown team, you have Matthew Dick coming back, Kane Dotson, Chase Pinkerton, Carter Claxton as starters, and then you're going to have
Raymer,
and then the Florence brothers coming back as well, and a really good JV team. So look for them. Obviously, really well coached as well. So I wouldn't be surprised if you're going to see those two next year matching up once again in the regionals. But we kind of thought that was going to happen this year with the Chesapeake team that we knew had a lot coming back. So you never know what'll happen.
Yeah, you don't.
Especially also maybe with some divisional moves we'll see as well, because that can happen from time to time. So outstanding season in Division 5. So let's go to Division 4. And Circleville, they win just kind of a weird game with Unioto in that regional semifinal, a game they never trailed, but it felt like they were completely on their heels in the fourth quarter of that game. Then a big time play by Colton Ungester, and they end up winning that game by. I'm scoring it as 1. I mean, it was clearly a 3. It didn't matter. It was a 4-point game when Blake Fitch hit his shot at the buzzer, but I think it was officially a 2-point game, but a really good game there. Then they go on to play Maysville in a game where a lot of people thought that was going to be a blowout from the get-go. I think we both had pretty high confidence that Circleville was going to be able to be competitive. I didn't think they could score what they did. I thought they were going to have to be a little tighter defensively. But in that game, ends up being a 72-52 game. Wasn't really a 20-point game. Overall, I mean, it was a game they were down by 3 at the half. And really, talking to Coach Callahan after the game, he had said he felt like it was one of the best halves they played all year, and they were down by 3. That's how good that Maysville team is. In that game, Nungesser had 9 points all in the first half, so that was a big difference maker down the stretch. But I thought Jack Klein was really good. Riley Jenkins.
They got a lot of offense from a lot of people in that game. Kirk was good off the bench.
Yeah, Kirk was good off the bench. You had Blaine Fowler was really good. Bigham didn't play as much as he had been playing, but
I think a lot of that was just Kirk. Kirk started to play well, I think, but all of them scored the basketball a little bit. Look, Circleville all year long. If you've listened to overtime, I felt like Circleville was as good a team as we had in our entire coverage area, regardless of the division. They're unbelievable on the defensive end. I thought Maysville would be a tough matchup from them from the standpoint of in watching Circleville. I thought to attack them best, I thought you needed to be able to step off the line a little bit because they're so big.
Yeah,
step off the line a little bit and shoot the three from 2, 3, 4 spots on the court. Well, think about it. I just described. Like I thought it'd be a really tough matchup for them in that sense. This Circleville team was unbelievable on the defensive end. They had a couple possessions that you watched them in their Unioto game and so forth, where it was just a master class in help, recover, close out. And I thought they did some of the same things in the final. They just were running into a team that could spread the court and shoot it just a little bit better. And obviously, you start getting into the second half, and that tempo starts going up into a point total that you're not used to seeing Circleville give up. And I thought that had more to do with the opponent than it did their inability to guard.
Well, when that was a half court game, Circleville was the better team. But it's not a half court game. It's a full court game. So once Maysville was able to get their pace, that's when Circleville was in trouble, and that's when you saw the difference in the game where they go from being up 6 late in the second quarter. And honestly, like I had tweeted out, like it was an uncomfortable like energy in the gym because the crowd was so heavily towards Maysville. That was an unbelievable job of traveling by that Maysville group 2 times in the week. I was really impressed with what they were able to do crowd-wise. But Bradley Jenkins gets a 3-point play to put Circleville up 24-18 about midway through the second quarter. And I was like, man, this is kind of a nervous energy right now. And then a 3 and a 3, and then I think it was a 2 then a steal and a basket, and it went from being down 6 to up 2 in like less than a minute, and that's when you could be like, Jack Klein hits about a 30-footer to end the first half to cut it to a 3-point game. Second half, though, Gator Nichols showed why he's a Mr. Basketball nominee because he only had 8 in the first half. He really struggled from the field. Second half, he did not struggle from the field. He did not miss a shot in the second half and was just flat out unbelievable. He had 20 in the second half and came out with about 3 minutes left because of what he was able to do. That's a really talented team. You can see why they won a state championship. Only one so far. I misspoke on that. They got to the finals 2 years ago. They take on a Wyoming team that they beat last year at the state tournament coming up, and that's going to be a really fun matchup. Those are really well-coached teams that really play a similar style and should be really fun.
Oh, there's no question about it. Like I said, if you love basketball, you certainly enjoyed watching the Maysville team play. But make no mistake about it, this Circleville team was really complete, led by a terrific player, great athleticism and roll kids to the side, good post presence, and then had a mixture of guys in Bigham and Kirk that could come off and do a lot of things just to make winning plays, a lot of effort, a lot of energy. And I thought they played really, really well against a good team and just Maysville a little too much there in the last, 10 minutes of the game?
Yeah, I would say so. And it was an impressive display by Maysville, but impressive season for Circleville. They win their first conference title since 1983, their first ever MSL title, and then you win your first district, I believe, since 97 on that. And they get to the district championship game and competed at a really high level for a majority of that game. Outstanding season. Coach Callahan did a great job, and then, as we've said, District Player of the Year for a reason. Cole Nungesser, he was fantastic all season long. Yeah. Just a really fun team to cover and to follow throughout the year. I was really impressed with them.
Yeah, I graded them really high all year long. I was just so impressed with them on the defensive end. They ended up I don't know what it ended up after that 72 from Maysville, but most of the year they were only giving up about 39.5 points.
Yeah.
Just really, really impressed with their ability their versatility to switch things, to pass things off, to guard the perimeter while still protecting the basketball and rebounding at a high level.
Yeah, I was very impressed with what they were able to do, and they had a nice JV group coming back. They got some nice pieces.
Athletic group. They don't lack athletes in that program for sure.
Yeah, and I think they are going to be, in a position to where maybe they're not back in the exact same spot, but they won't be too long until they're back in a similar spot because, this is one of those program builder years. Is what they do next is very important, obviously, but they're in a really good spot with the athletes that typically come out of the Circleville area.
Yeah, no question. And you're seeing it in a lot of their sports. We highlighted that earlier in the girls and boy, there's a lot of culture where people are really excited about what's going on in that athletic department.
Mm-hmm. And then another athletic department that's really excited is that Unioto group. They get to the regional semifinal once again. Another really tough one down the stretch, but man, Blake Fitch, what a career! I feel like he's almost underappreciated. Just because he didn't really ever do it like super high level point wise. He still ends up around 1,200 career points, and he's third all time in Unioto history as far as scoring goes. He broke his own SVC record for free throw percentage in a season, which happened on his last made free throw. I don't know if I told you that one. So he was 61 of 68 2 years ago. He was 62 of 69 this year. So that bumped it up a little bit. So he breaks his own SVC record for free throw percentage. And then he's also the Unioto's all-time assist leader as well. So two-time SVC Player of the Year. He's going to be some level of an All-Ohioan this year. Just an outstanding career, and I feel almost underappreciated in a way.
Yeah, I love his game. I just when you watch him play, the coaching, you just appreciate so much the IQ. You watch him do things on the defensive end that have to come from film study, have to come from basketball IQ, because there's times you'll watch him away from the ball and you're like, that's not even really his rotation. He just knew what was coming. He just went and made the play.
Yeah.
It's just really impressive to watch. He's very old school in the fact of like the way he talks to his teammates, the way he gets people in the right spots and gets things based on Unioto's a team that does a lot of subbing in and out, and you just watch him kind of organize them really well and do some things. I love his game. I thought what was interesting in the matchup against Circleville was both times they played Circleville is, they weren't necessarily going to just turn it over all the time, but in the quarter, you watch them play and you're like, where's Unioto ever going to score against that team?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Because like there's a couple, like I said, there's a couple possessions down there at the Convo in the Circleville game in the first half where Unioto did some really good things and shared the ball. And it was a master class in terms of the way they helped recover, and their size and their length they're doing it at is unbelievable. Well, what was the X factor in both games that allowed Unioto to play Circleville better than just about every other team in there? It was like this. Right?
Yeah.
He basically was able to just go get you one.
Yeah.
On many occasions, he just went to the mid-range and he just kind of just put his team on his back and did some things. I thought it was really difficult for the Unioto three-point shooters to get going because, again, the length. Mm-hmm. So the X factor was Fitch in the mid-range, and I thought he was terrific in terms of keeping Unioto in it and getting them all the way back, tied at one point.
Yep,
with the ball and just couldn't, get the bucket, and it was an incredible game back and forth too, and it's a game where you're, the incredible fan bases and they're hanging on every call and they're hanging on every different situation. And that's what makes it fun. You get down into the fourth quarter and both teams had chances, and at the end of the day, Circleville just ended up making a few extra plays to advance.
Yeah, and it was ended up being a really good season once again for Unioto. 20 wins on the year. They will graduate Fitch, Dawson Mitchell, who had a really nice senior year, Jackson Zickafus, and then David Long as well. But they return a lot of really nice pieces. Braden Harshaw was.
Well, I think they're also. Yeah. I'm not a doctor, but I assume they'll be without Patterson all the way in the next year too, at least at the beginning. So that was another big loss down the stretch. So 4 of the 9 that they played will return healthy. Am I saying that right? Yeah.
Well, then you have Harsha, and then obviously Jack Welch and Isaac Coy were really good throughout the season. Harsha was really good in the postseason as well. As I thought he played his best basketball then, and then you got like a Lake and Langhoff coming back, and
He'll be a good player.
It's
Good guard play coming up off the JV squad there.
The size is probably going to be the biggest thing for them, but I think they're going to still really guard you. Should be a really nice team again.
The people at Unioto in all of their sports have been really high on this year's freshman boys group.
Mm-hmm.
Well, now as they move into their sophomore year, I think a lot of the programs are going to be starting to peek at them a little bit. Not to say they don't have juniors and seniors, because in a program like Unioto, you have kids waiting their turn all the time. But I think that'll be a big factor in the next year, too.
Mm-hmm. Yep, and that's going to make them really interesting across the board in each sport. So let's move to Division III. It was a day where we don't talk a whole lot about Marietta, but they really battled in a game where they lose to Bishop Watterson. They end up losing that game by 10. They got off to a nice start, and then they just went ice cold for really 2 quarters. But I think just what you can say about that program and that team, obviously really senior heavy, was just how hard they competed. And because of that, they got themselves back into that game with Watterson, in a game where they kind of like Fairland on that girls' side, where it could have got away from them, they could have rolled over, but ultimately they gave themselves a chance down the stretch.
I think Marietta is the perfect example of why I love the 7 divisions, or when I wanted it to go to 5 divisions, basically. But their ability to separate Division 1 and 2, it brings a fairness that we haven't had in our state in basketball in forever. You know what I mean? So like all of a sudden now this Marietta team gets a chance to legitimately compete at the Division 3 level, instead of having a really good team and maybe playing some Division 1 team who knows how many kids they have. I was impressed with them. I watched them on a film really early in the year, and I'm like, wow. You know what I mean? And like, so I started following them a little bit closer. And then when we got a chance to have them at the Convo, I was excited to see them in person, because they're a really, really good team. I mean, and I think it's been about 4 or 5 years now in a row that they've been pretty good. And I don't know that everybody in that surrounding area down there has appreciated that, because again, they haven't maybe had some of the postseason success to show for it. So I think more than anything, I'm just happy for their program that they got a chance to go on that stage and play as well as they did.
Yeah, it was really impressive to see what they were able to do. You could tell they're a really well coached team, and it was a nice group of athletes. They were a lot of similar sized kids, a lot of 6'3" good athletes. I really loved the Whittakin kid. I thought Riley was really good for them. Hawkins was really good. So those 3.
Gross, Close. Am I saying that right?
Yeah,
Gross, Close.
I believe so.
He was a good player.
Yeah,
good player.
I was impressed with them. Like I just feel like they had some nice pieces, and I thought they competed at a really high level. And then that when you play that independent schedule, which they're going to get to do for a whole lot more year, you can really up your non-conference schedule, and they did so, and that was really a high level non-conference schedule, and I thought that got them ready.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more, and I thought that was some really, really high level basketball there at the D3 from the district level on, and best of luck to some of those teams moving forward, because we ended up watching some outstanding athleticism. Is that really from day one of the district tournament in Division 3, as you'd expect? Yeah. All the way through the regional level, they're going to the state now.
Well, then Steubenville, I thought was the best team there. When it kind of started on those games last Tuesday, Bishop Hartley was really good. I mean, all 4 of those teams were really good, but man, Steubenville plays a really
Don't you
fun
feel
style.
like Steubenville falls into what I'm saying too? Steubenville was probably a size of school there for a while where no matter how good they were never going to be good enough to compete much past the district semifinal level. Yeah,
just because of just kind of that level, and now they are more like size schools.
That's it.
And then then when you have kind of a transcendent player like Santino Haney,
he's good.
Oh man, he's super fun, and he wasn't even the big one in that regional final. As they get some really nice pieces all around, and they earn their first trip to the Final Four, and I think it was 1952, I believe was the year. So outstanding performance by them, and kind of like Maysville and West Muskingum, even Highland as well, and I guess we'll throw Malvern in. I mean, we got smoked. We got smoked by the East this year.
District, and they were extremely proud, and rightfully so.
Yeah.
Really, really impressive. But the point that I've been making, I tip my cap to the East because again, I'm not saying we're not chasing some other areas.
Yeah.
What I'm saying is, I am seeing the gap close, and I'm seeing more opportunity for more of our teams, and they're going to get more comfortable on this stage. And it's a really good time for Southeast Ohio to have some opportunities that, quite frankly, our area has never had statewide.
Well, and I think you can almost throw the East in there with us because we're like when you see that Gator Nichols is put up for Mr. Basketball, it's East Southeast, so we're kind of together now. We're separate districts, but I think it's almost they're almost underappreciated as well, like we are now. So I think it's going to be easy for people from our area to root for them because we saw them down at the Convo. We saw them over at Ohio Dominican. We see them, having to deal with similar levels of disrespect that the Southeast gets. So hopefully, I think Maysville probably has the best chance, but I think the Steubenville team is going to be a tough matchup with anybody. I know West Muskingum's going to have a really tough one with Columbus Academy, but I think that's more of a doable one than like a Lutheran East would be, and then Highland always is there, and we'll see what Malvern can do. I think that was going to be a really tough matchup no matter what, because that Delphos St. John's is going to be a really tough team. But
it was.
Rooting for the East as well. So next season, if we're just looking at next season, I mean, obviously we've talked a lot about this season and some of those teams that we know have a lot coming back. Is there anybody that maybe we didn't talk about that could be, obviously we talk about Eastern Brown. We talk about Ironton. I think we're both really high on that Peebles team because they've got some really nice pieces coming back as well. Is there anybody else that you really think about for next year?
A lot of these teams, there's a reason they're there every year. A lot of these teams, I think, have a chance to be right back there again next year. I think what I would probably do is I would probably back up on the bracket and look at a couple teams that were knocking on the door that are going to return a lot of versatility and a lot of size and a lot of different things. I think of like the matchup between Adena and Valley. I think those are two sleepers that could really take steps forward. You mentioned the Peebles group. I agree with you there. I think Chillicothe returns an awful lot if they can really solidify the point guard position. I think they got a chance to be really good. Huntington, you're exactly right. So I think those are some of the teams going in the next year. I think certain teams have certain kids graduate, so you think they're going to be down. I'd be careful saying that. Like a Miami Trace, I'd be careful not recognizing just how much talent they have coming back. Those types of programs. So, no, I'm excited to follow it into the summer and see. But the depth in these divisions, I think we ended up seeing that on display more than we thought this year when you looked at the way an Eastern jumped into that Division 5 and just started stirring up the whole bracket, knocking off a Chesapeake and knocking off or going toe-to-toe with an Ironton. That type of thing.
Well, if we look at like a Division 4, I think Fairfield Union, I know they lost early in the tournament.
Yes, that's good pick.
They have got a lot back. Obviously, we talked a ton about Waverly last week. We're both huge on them. And then, since we mentioned those two.
How about Gallia?
Gallia, I think, is going to be really good. But going back to Waverly and Fairfield Union, New Lexington, because they only had a couple of seniors and their big two scorers were both juniors.
Late in the year, they started to come
That's a well-coached team. You mentioned Gallia. I think Wellston's got a chance
really
to be.
like Gallia's point guard.
Yeah. Ty Reed.
Good player.
I think Wellston could be interesting just because you're going to have Wes Briggs back. And
well, you got a little taste of it. And I think what happens is that's a team that they got there a lot on their basketball IQ and skill. I think that's a team that's going to really go to work to become bigger, faster, stronger, a little bit more athletic, to where when they get to that level, they can match up just a little bit more.
And you had mentioned like a Chillicothe, Miami Trace is still going to be pretty good. I know. I think Miami Trace is going to be a lot more of what you saw at the end of the year.
Yeah.
And Warren is another one that I know is very young this year. I just think I think it's going to be another year where maybe there isn't the super team at the top like we've seen before, but I think we're going to see a lot of depth through there, and I think we're going to have some.
Who would you if I made you just pick a couple where you're like elite? Eastern Brown's got to be up there.
Eastern Brown.
I mean, Eastern won what 20 plus this year.
Yeah, Eastern.
I mean, they got a chance to be really good.
I think Eastern Brown, Chillicothe, Ironton would probably be the top three that I would say. Fairfield, I think, is going to have a chance at. They could beat you on any night. Now, the fact that they're going to have to find 2 to probably 4.
How old's Peebles?
Peebles graduated 3 that really played a lot for them, but McClary, Johnson, Puckett are all back. Yeah. Those are some big time pieces. Gross, the point guard, is
the
another
depth
one.
of that conference is good too, because all those North Adams kids are back now with a year of experience. Yeah, so I mean, it is. I think there's going to be more depth. I think again the tournament format gives more teams more of a chance to believe. It'd be interesting to follow.
And really, I mean, at no point will I ever think Southwestern's not good. I mean, they graduate a ton.
Yeah.
Maybe Division 7 kind of opens up for a second team. Maybe it's Fairfield and someone else can slide in there. It may still be Southern because of Brenniger.
You also mentioned the enrollment changes. Does someone slide up or down, and that could become a complete game changer?
Fayetteville is coming in. What division are they going to be? Are they going to be 6 or 7? Because with Fayetteville, they're going to be one of those really interesting ones to look at because they had a really good team.
Yeah.
Joby Stewart doesn't just go to a place if it doesn't have something lined up pretty well.
Yeah.
When you get kind of like Coach Pearson, when those guys get a little bit older, they look years ahead of what's like. If I'm going to spend 3, 4, 5 more years out of school, they better have something lined up. And I feel like Fayetteville probably has something there. I know you mentioned Valley. Valley's going to be a really tough one in Division 6. I think Eastern Pike, Boston Webb. I know you're going to graduate a couple of really nice pieces there, but I think Coach Lice does a really good job there. I think Northwest has some good pieces. Just should be a really fun year again next year. But once again, kind of look to see who plays.
Yeah,
who
you mentioned Huntington. I mean, you could argue on paper coming back next year they got the best player in the league. There's a lot of interesting things there to follow for sure.
So should be really fun. So that'll be what we talk about for next season. Now, something we haven't really talked about, really at all. I think we kind of mentioned it a couple weeks ago. Didn't really know a whole lot of places to find a lot of information on wrestling, and this is really still going to be a shortened version of this, but the state wrestling meet was held this week at the Shot, which kind of see what that's going to be called. Is it going to still be called Value City Arena? Because I know Value City is whatever, but so just I would find some of these sports that we don't talk a ton about is sometimes it's harder to get information on. Wrestling, cross country might be the hardest ones to do because of all the things you have to do physically to your own body to even be able to compete at these. And so we want to make sure we highlight some of these kids at the end of their season. So we're going to talk probably really about the kids that finished in the top 4, gotten those 3rd and 4th place matches for a state championship. We had 2 wrestlers that competed for a state championship this year. Division 3 River Valley's Butter Manley wins the Division 3 state championship in the 190-pound class. Just an unbelievable accomplishment to do from the Bidwell area. Comes through, and obviously anytime you can be a state champion in an event where it is you versus the person across from you. There's nobody else. It is what you do. just says so much about what you do as an athlete.
But what I love about that, and you just touched on it, is it's not a, so and so didn't shoot it well, so and so didn't rebound, so and so didn't. No. It's you against someone else who's really really good, or they wouldn't be there either, and the ability to win on that stage. So when you start talking state champion, you're just, it's such an elite accomplishment, and that's awesome to see that come out of the southeast district there.
It's anytime you can win a state championship, like you mentioned, it comes down to you, and by doing so, it's just an incredible accomplishment. As you said, Chillicothe's Cannon Smith finished second in Division II in the 132. Just a phenomenal career for him. I believe I saw he was over 200 wins, which is a crazy amount. I
know that's an athlete that they've been real excited about in that community, and like, as you can imagine, when you have someone that good at that, you all of a sudden the football team wants to get you out, and you want to do this and you want to do that. But it's interesting to see how all of those sports, I'm sure, played a role in on that young man continuing to improve, that's awesome to see him just stay the course, because getting a chance to follow him a little bit throughout the career, a terrific young man.
Yes, it definitely seems like that. I know he's going to be able to go on and continue it as well. Then third place, we had girls, which on the girls side, there's only one division. There's 3 in boys. You've got 7 in a lot of different sports, but when you get to these individual sports, it limits it down. But in girls, only one division. So the third best wrestler at the 120-pound weight class across the state was Huntington's Mackenzie Mills, only a freshman. And what makes hers even more impressive, what put her into that consolation bracket, she lost in the second round. She beat that same wrestler for third place.
What, if you haven't had a chance to see, they're out there in a variety of places, just over the weekend following her progress. Really well-spoken young lady, really, really impressed with her interviews and her ability to talk strategy, to talk about the township, talking about, the community support and all the different things. I thought that was really, really impressive. Really, really good athlete. And, to be that age, the sky's the limit moving forward.
Yeah, I look forward to tracking her progress throughout. And then we had 4 different wrestlers that ended up dropping their third place matches, ended up getting 4th, which, I mean, if you're 4th in the state in your weight class is very impressive. Looking on the girls' side first, Logan's Brooklyn Whited finished 4th in the 140. On the boys' side, Miami Trace's Tyler Stevens finished 4th in the 190. Guy Academy's Wyatt Warren finished 4th in the 157. And then New Lexington's Harrison Ratliff finished 4th in the 150 weight class. So congratulations to all of them, because that means you won several matches even to get to that point.
Yeah.
Outstanding seasons for all of them.
Well, and what happens is when you're talking about a young kid, you're talking about setting the stage for more to come. If you're talking about an older kid, there was a process that they went through to get to that level. So that had to be an incredible accomplishment to cap it all. I think that's what's so impressive about all of it. When I watch these kids in certain track events or cross country or tennis or whatever, sometimes where, there may be a team score, there may be this or that or whatever, but a lot of what you're doing is an individual, no excuse. You versus the competition. You're the one that has to train. You're the one that has to get yourself ready to go, and that's awesome to see those kids from our area go to the highest level and compete as well as they did.
Yeah, for Ratliff, he was a senior. Wyatt Warren was a junior, so he'll have a chance to try to improve off of that finish from this year. Let me go down real quick.
And we know, John, know from sports that there's no guarantee you'll be back.
Right.
So you it's hats off for taking the advantage here, but at the same time, you're not at that level if you're not a great competitor. So you're naturally going to look, if you're not a senior, you're naturally going to be eyeballing, just like the young man from River Valley. You're eyeballing, hey, I want to win the whole thing.
Yeah, and that's a great thing, obviously. And then if you look Brooklyn Whited from Logan, only a sophomore, and then Wyatt Warren Tyler Stevens from Miami Trace was a senior as well. So let me look really quick just on Manley, just to find out for sure on his age, as somebody to look for in the future. Only a sophomore.
Yeah.
Only a sophomore and you win a state championship. 47, 48, 49, 50 and 1 this season for him. Not bad. Not bad at all. Very impressive. And
Hey, if you're that one, you
got to feel pretty good about it.
Feel good about that.
Yeah, so congratulations to all of our local athletes that made it to the state wrestling meet. There were many, many more beyond that as well, and hopefully we can highlight it a little bit more next season when we get to get some more stuff. As far as knowing exactly where to find it, because like if it's all on Bomb's page all the time, that's a little bit easier. Because I love Bomb's page. Yes. But couple things to just put a capper on this. This will be our winter finale. We are going to take a whole lot of week off. We're going to take one Sunday
Don't know
off.
what to do with myself.
Yeah. So watch college basketball. Although we came in on Monday the last couple weeks, so I mean it's not really anything going on then as well. So it's we appreciate Perfection One to be able to have us come in each and every week. But we are going to take the 22nd off. We'll be back in here on the 29th. That's when the Haynesville Healthcare Coaches Call-In Show will be back for the spring season as well. We'll have some announcements on when different baseball games streaming will be. Probably stick to baseball this year. Almost everything will be out at the VA because we know how we can set up there as far as our outfield camera and infield and behind home plate camera. We'll see maybe about going elsewhere. We don't want to decide that if we don't know 100% sure that we will be going elsewhere. But
hey, there's no promises, but what I would love for a lot of our coaches and athletic directors and parents to do is, and again, don't lie to us.
Yeah.
but I would love to know. Do you have a baseball or softball facility? Do you think would allow for a good stream in terms of good internets first and foremost, but then the types of facilities I'm not going to say any out on the air just yet, but we've been scouting some out here throughout our area because that's our ultimate goal. I'm not saying we'll get there this year, but our ultimate goal was to give. I mean, goodness, you're talking to someone who coached spring sports for 30 years. And I know you coached a long time too. We want to do this. It's not the easiest thing to do when you go out on the road and you don't know what type of internet connection you're going to have, what kind of weather protection do you have, what some of the equipment and so forth. So I'd love to get that type of feedback.
Yeah, and it would be great to find out for sure what we can do, where we can go, what availability we have as well. I know we've got at least one place where we could probably do softball. We just got to make sure that we fully know the game. It's very similar, but it's one of those things. There's a possibility of that in the future as well. We don't want to, once again, no guarantees on anything, but we'd like to expand our coverage to cover as many of our spring athletes as possible. So look forward to that. Now, when we mention the things out at the VA in Chillicothe, there's games pretty much every night of the spring season. Now, sometimes there's college games, so make sure you look out for that as well. But one of the big things that we have every spring is the First National Bank of Waverly First Pitch Classic that's held at the VA every year. It will start on Saturday the 28th, so we will not be back until Monday, March 30th. That'll be our first episode, but it starts on Saturday the 28th. There's actually games on Friday the 27th also this year. So, but on the 28th, we will have a triple header. It will be Buckeye Valley against Wheelersburg. In the first game of that will be a 12 o'clock start. Zane Trace against Delaware Hayes will be a 2:45 start, and then a really good out of area game will be Dublin Kaufman and Hilliard Derby. We'll finish that night off on the 28th, and then we'll mention on the 30th, because sometimes you don't hear it on here, will be Piketon and McLean, and then Southeastern and North Adams. We'll start off the local week ahead there. There will be games, 2 games each night of the week, and then on that next Saturday, we'll have 4 games, which will start with Marietta and Heath. Oh my goodness, that's a 10 a.m. game. Hopefully they're staying the night before. So those will be the games over at the VA. If you want to hear wonderful vocal stylings from myself on the PA, you'll hear that. And look around. There's going to be a lot of social media stuff going out, but also when you're at the stadium, you'll see some SOSA people as
Probably
well.
doesn't hurt too to throw out there, like if sponsorship, if you're wanting to see the streaming grow for baseball and softball, especially on the baseball side where we have the VA available, by all means, get a hold of us and we'll get you hooked up with the right people. But again, that's our goal is to take what we've been able to do in fall and winter and expand it into the spring season.
And that tends to grow whenever we have the more people that are wanting to do so. Now, also the only thing with our spring coverage is I'm there every day because I'm working those games. And then like our Kenneth Hay, who did a lot more game coverage this year, he actually runs the concessions out at the VA in the summer and does a lot of work as well. So we are excited to get out, see a lot of spring sports coming up. It was a fantastic winter season. You know, we appreciate all of our sponsors, but we are able to stream 58 games this year for SOSA. I believe it was 59 last year, but that included the regionals. So without being able to do the regionals this year, we were still able to get to a lot of our stuff, but we appreciate all of our sponsors and just, real quick, I'm sure people are really locked in right now to do it, but Ohio Health, we appreciate everything that they make it to where we're able to do. The Glockner Family Dealerships, Willie & Son Trucking, the Schmidt Family Restaurant Group, just a Norfolk Animal Clinic, Haynesville Healthcare, you had Shayne Meyer State Farm, Neil Coleman Insurance, Homeland Credit Union, Bo Lacey, Glow Fiber, the Howler Funeral Home, Pickaway Ross, Career and Technology Center, Dr. Mark A. Connor, Ironton Pure Tap, Megan Carroll, State Farm that does all of our Pike County, Kingston National Bank, Tomlinson Insurance, Benton County National Bank, Edward Jones, Rathkamp Financial, Quality Builders of Ohio, the Willis Clark Agency, Chillicothe the Comfort, Heating and Air, the Driving Authority, Stewart's Volks, Insurance Agency, The Root, Chillicothe Sports Cards. We appreciate all of those. And then also G&J Paving. Then we had Centerpoint Church came along for the postseason as well. So we appreciate all of those sponsors. And then just kind of every one of you that watches and helps us do everything that we're able to do. Obviously, for me, this year I was able to take kind of a step back a little bit on the streaming because Shayne came in and really helped out and took over a lot of that stuff and helped us here on the show with Dewey filling into another role as well. So we appreciate Dewey Daly, Jacob Wise helping us with a lot of that stuff. And then obviously, Kenneth Hay and then Carson Francis along the way. And Raymond Gladle has really taken us to the next level as far as photography goes as well. So
yeah, I thoroughly enjoyed it. I can't wait to do more and more. I love the conversations and the different things that not a week goes by where I don't get some feedback on the show or some different conversations from the show or whatever. I really enjoy it.
Yeah, and then just a few other things. Obviously Derek and Brock, we appreciate them. Tanner Chenault did some video stuff for us. I know he shot the dugout video, and he does some really cool stuff through Londonderry Lens and Morgan Wilbanks as well. So, we'll just have a lot of different people. Maybe not as many as we've had in the past, but a lot of different people have really impacted what we've been able to do through SOSA, and we appreciate each and every one of them. And then once again, we've said it throughout the year. A lot of different people are doing similar things to SOSA. Go out and support them. It's a lot of time that people are spending to support a lot of our youth as well, and then a lot of good people out there. And check out who is sponsoring them. So we mentioned all of our sponsors, but if people are sponsoring, different activities as well, and we had like the Ott Norman and company came on and helped with our our classic, as so did Shawnee State, and we just appreciate all of those people, and it's just some good people out there, and we appreciate each and every one of them.
Yeah, love the coverage we give. Again, we believe in what we cover, and couldn't do it without them. So we say thank you.
Yep. So have a great rest of your winter season. If you're going to go up and watch the games over at the Nutter Center and UD Arena, two great facilities to watch high school sports. 7 outstanding divisions, so 21 games over there. Get a chance to watch some more basketball. And other than that, for Shayne Combs, I'm John Bruce. Go Bucks. You've been watching SOSA Overtime, presented by Perfection One. Have a great rest of your week.